Right, so first of all, I thought it'd be useful to show you what it is we're aiming for. What we're looking at here is a very simple little level I've created with a bunch of boxes here and with a gun. Press the trigger. You can change the shape of the projectiles, but we're not going to be doing that now. And what I've got here are suspicious looking boxes which clearly need to be blown up. So this is what we're quite heavy boxes. So there you go. That's quite an effective look with all the explosions going on. Um, Now, how far we get towards this, or how far you get towards this, depends on how much attention you pay to this video, or to me talking if we're doing it in the classroom. So pay attention. We've got 1 hour to get from I've never used Unreal before in my life to blowing up boxes. Quite addictive. Hit that button. Okay, let's start. As I try to remember how to stop the recording. Uh-huh. 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 So this is a video tutorial on how to create our target practice um, industry week games development experience. Sounds cool, huh? So the first thing we need to do is to run Unreal Engine. Now for you guys, it's on the applications list on the bottom left of your screens. There are two versions of Unreal on most machines. We want 4.26. If you've already selected 4.29, you've done it wrong. We want 4.26. Now this is a different launcher because I'm at home. So I'm using my laptop at home. You'll get this bit. This can take some time. It usually gets stuck around about 90%. Mine's pretty quick, but wait. You'll get this screen which says create or select a new project. We want to start a game. So select game, then hit next. You will then get a whole list of different templates that you can run. Um, Refrain yourself from exploring right now. Do that in your own time. But for now, we just want a first person shooter. As you see, there's a little gun there. So make sure you've got first person shooter selected, then drop down to here and hit next. This is the project settings. Now you shouldn't need to change anything on here. Just make sure this says with starter content. If it doesn't, just click on it. We want starter content. It's a whole bunch of materials, meshes and stuff which you get as a default in Unreal projects, which is very handy. All of this, yeah, don't want to touch. Down at the bottom, it will automatically select your area on OneDrive. All of the Unreal work saved to OneDrive, so that when you do this as a unit, you can work on your Unreal projects at home. Bloody handy. It defaults to the name of my project. Don't do that. Give it something that makes sense. I'm going for target practice. If I can spell. Always give your work a meaningful name, whether you're working on a website, um, some kind of development, or even just a Word document. If you've got stuff that's just called Doc 1, Doc 2, Doc 3, and you're trying to find stuff, you ain't going to find it if it hasn't got a sensible name. So give it a sensible name. Then just hit create project. Now again, the college, this might take a few minutes. For me, it's nice and whizzy at home. Bang. Now this is the initial starting screen for any Unreal project version 4. There's a lot going on here. Do not worry about it. The only bits we need to worry about are going to be the menu on the left, which defaults to basic, which is everything we are going to need. And on the right, there's a details panel here. And big fat friendly play button. That's all we're going to need for now. Now when you start, we've got this default level down here. This is like a project template. We're not going to use this. To rotate around the screen bar, I'm just holding down either of the cursor keys and that'll move me around. Scroll in and out using the wheel on the top. I'm not going to use this. No doubt some of you have already just pressed the play button and you're now shooting cubes. Stop it, we haven't got time. We're going to do our development on a brand new level we're going to create from virtually scratch. And to do that, we go to the top left, select File, and then New Level. We get 4 options. We are going for Default. Now, what default? I just clicked Default. What default gives us? I'm just scrolling in and out, moving using the mouse keys. Is hit play. Nope, just a blank. Just a blank floor, nothing in it. To get out of play mode, you either hit stop at the top right where you'll find your count, or just hit escape. Now if I scroll back and click on that icon there, that's my player start. Now at the moment, he's bang smack in the middle of the screen. So I'm just going to move him to the back. So when I hit play now, I'm at the back of the screen. My little bit of floor, which I can easily fall off. Now this is fine, but I've got an X shoot. That will still be there. Press escape. We all have something to shoot at. What I want is just a cube. So on the left hand side of the screen, we've got all of these basic things. I want to pick a basic cube and I'm going to put it at the far end there. Now to zoom up to it, just press F. I'm going to rotate around it by holding down the Alt key and the left mouse button. I can now rotate around my object. Pull back using the wheel. Now I want it at the edge. I'm going to leave it there. When I hit play now, shoot my cube. And nothing's happening. So that's not look good to us. What I want it reacting. I want it to react to the projectile hitting it. At the moment, it's just an object. It's just sitting there in midair. It hasn't got any physics at all. So I need to add some physics. So making sure I've just got my object selected, I want to go to the Details panel here on the right. Make that a little bit bigger. You can resize all of these windows. Oops. Try not to close them, but you can resize all of these windows. And for each object you select, we've got a different set of details. So I selected my cube, scroll down, and I've got here a section on physics. Now I just need to click that to true, and that box has now got physics. So when I play the game, the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to drop out of the sky because it's now got some gravity. Bang. And when I shoot it, it goes on for absolutely nothing because it's got very little weight. So I press escape again. Make sure my box is selected. This time I'm going to put it on the ground. Don't put it in the ground, by the way, because it doesn't like it. So I'm just going to put it just on the ground there. Now I've still got physics selected here in the details panel, but now I'm going to change the weight. Just click on this little one here, mass in kilograms. Now it's only got 100 kilos, that's why it's flying all over the place. If I change that to about, I don't know, 1200, it's now got some weight. So when I press play now, it just falls over. Press escape and try it again. And you can keep shooting it. Right, so that's the first little bit. We've got some physics. What I'm going to quickly do is change the color of it because it's actually quite hard to see. So I'm just going to make the content browser a little bit bigger. This is just like a folder viewer, just like you do when you go to File Explorer. I'm going to click Content to go to the root. Now I said about selecting starter content. This is important. Starter content gives us a whole bunch of things. So I'm going to open the starter content folder. Then I'm going to open the materials folder. Now look at all of these different materials I've got in here. And I can set this to. I'm just going to pick something that's fairly dark. I'm going to pick one of these wooden ones. There we go. Shiny wood. Look at that. I've got a nice polished wood block. So now when I play, I can actually see the thing. And I can see it disappearing off the edge. That's the first steps. I'm going to pause now. Save my level first of all. Save everything. Unreal running at the college is a tiny bit flaky. In some rooms, it's quite flaky. So make sure you save your work. This saves the current level, which I haven't given it any name yet. It just says new map. you change that to target, and then top left, save all. And that's the first bit. Now do your fast forward, back forward, and make sure we're at the same bit. I'm just going to pause the recording. Good. So having saved your work, I hope you have, we've got a situation where we've got our block and we shoot off and it falls off the edge. That's a bit annoying actually, the fact that it keeps falling off the edge. So there's a couple of things I can do. I can make this longer. Now I can do that by coming to this button here and I can stretch it. But as you can see, the ground is stretched. If I put a material on that, brickwork, grass or whatever, it gets stretched, which isn't very nice. So I'm not going to do that. It's lazy and it looks poo. To undo what I've just done, I'm just going to hit Control Z. What I'm going to do instead, I'm going to duplicate my ground. So it's still selected. I'm going to go back to select. Now look, to duplicate stuff in here is really easy. I'm going to hold down the Alt key, select my red arrow in this case, and I can just drag it over and butt it up. Not quite there. Oh, we're even going to move that a little bit. The other two arrows move stuff however you want. Control Z, by the way, goes on about 50 levels. Brilliant. So what I can do now is go back to my materials. Remember the materials in starter content where we got the wood. Go back to starter content, materials, and let's go for whatever you want. Let's go for cobblestones. There we go. And I can put that on both. So when I play now, I'm on a stone floor. And I can run up. And this is how easy it is in Unreal to create nice looking surfaces. Now for the more astute of you, you'll have noticed it says up in the top left here of the viewport, lighting needs to be rebuilt. It's because we are changing objects, we're adding materials, and Unreal Engine does all of the lighting, shadows and physics for us. Just need to rebuild it every now and again. Don't have to, don't bother. But when you want to, don't do it now. You just press build up here. Now, the reason I've said don't do it now, and I'm sorry if you didn't listen and you press build, is because on the machines at college they'll take 2 or 3 minutes, so you're stuck. So hit the pause button. I can do it on this machine, it's pretty quick. What it does, it builds a view of how the map exists and it calculates all the lighting. So what mine's going to do is just going to quickly work out the lighting. Bang, done. So now all the shadow and everything's worked out beautifully. And just save again. So I'm at this situation. Now there's a couple of things I can do here. I can, if I wish, duplicate this. Plop. Plop. There we go. Box 4 high now. And if I shoot. Level 4. Because they're quite heavy. So you can have some fun doing that. Now that's all right, you know, if you want to build yourself a wall of blocks and figure out how to break it apart. But I don't want that. What I want is explosions. I want the things to explode when I shoot it. So here's how we do that. Please save your work regularly. With my cube selected, I'm going to add some code to this. I'm going to add a little bit of code to this, which makes the cube respond to the projectile being hit. I don't just mean the physics. I don't just mean when the projectile hits it's going to fall over or whatever. I want some code to run to create an explosion. So I need to change my cube into what's called a blueprint. Now, a blueprint is a way of adding code to your game without having to be a software developer, so you don't need to learn programming. You can do it like this. I mean, underneath is all C++ under Unreal, which is very sophisticated, quite clever programming language, general purpose programming language. We're going to use blueprints. So I've got my cube selected. I go over here to the right and I hit that. And that it brings up this little box here. We don't need to change anything. All I want to do, I can change where I save where I want it to be. And I'm just going to go select. So in my editor, now this is just to edit my cube. I've got a viewport, which is just for my cube. I've got some details panels over on the right, which we're going to use in a minute. And I've got what makes up my blueprint here. So I've got a static mesh component, which is the cube. That's all there is in there. I want to add some code. So to add code, I'm going to go to this tab here, which brings up this. Now, if you've never done any Unreal development, this is going to be completely new to you. We have a series of what are known as event handlers, and these handle different events. So when something happens in the game, these recognize that thing's happened and they respond to it. For example, that one says event begin play. So when the game starts, that responds to the fact that the game started and it does something, but just within the cube. This on begin overlap, when something happens to the cube, like a player running into it, it does something. It picks up the fact that that event has happened. This one, event tick, runs with every tick of the game. So whatever frame rate the game's running at, that will fire off something, and you can add code to that. So it'll happen if, I don't know, 30 times a second. We're not going to use any of these. I want to add something that's going to detect when our cube has been hit. So when our cube has been hit, I want to detect that. So I want an event that's going to pick up when the cube has been hit. So with my cube selected, either up here or on here, go to back to event graph. With the details panel selected, which it should be, I'm going to scroll right down. Now at the bottom are a whole load of events, and I'm going to pick the very first one, which is event hit. So this says when my cube gets hit, do something, and in our case it's going to get hit by the projectile. Now the way to add code inside these blueprints is just to right click anywhere. It brings up a whole list of different commands which can be run, and it's context sensitive, so it's always aware of what it is you got selected. Now I can either just right click, or I can drag off of one of these pins. These are execute pins. That's next, that says execute, and these are different types of pins which we don't need to worry about right now. I'm going to drag off of that one. Now when I release, it brings back all of the things that could be run from that particular node. And just to test that it's picking up when a projectile is being hit, it's hitting the cube, I'm going to use a command called print. So I'm just going to type print. And as you can see here, I just pointed at it. There, it's here. Print string. Now what this does, this is just going to print the word hello to the top left of the screen every time. Compile it, the top left, save it. Every time something hits our cube. So every time something hits our cube, it's going to get picked up by this, and it's going to print the word hello to the top left of the screen. Save again. Bang. Now when I hit this, and you can see in the top right, I can't point to it, the words hello appeared. So up here, the word hello will appear every time the projectile hits this. So I've got a bit of code working. So what I want you to do now is try doing it. Once you've done it, hit this save button again, and then save all. So get that going, rewind, read it again, get that going, and we'll be back in a moment. Right, so we finished with us in this situation where we shoot and we get the word hello appear at the top left of the screen. So we've done that, we know our code works. Just want to remind you again, what we've created here, although it's a single cube, we created a blueprint. And that blueprint lives outside of any level. It's down here in our content folder, and it is a pattern. It's a blueprint, also known as a class in coding. Now what that means is I can pull pull any number of these on. And what I'm doing is I'm creating a whole bunch of objects based on the same blueprint. They are objects created from the same thing, which means I only need to update the behavior for all of these in one blueprint. So it doesn't matter how many of these I put onto the game, they behave and do exactly the same thing. So you can see how those appearing in the top corner, regardless of which one of these I'm shooting, because they are just a different object, a different instance of the same thing. Which means if I want to change the way they all behave in a game, I just need to edit one thing. I need to change the blueprint, that master version of how the thing lives. I didn't need to tell you all that. Teacher, I can't help it. So this is all well and good. It's saying hello and it's falling off. That's great. What I really want is pressing escape to get out of that. Is to make this explode. Now a couple of things here. First of all, I can't make this explode. It is a static mesh and it is a cube. I can't stop it being a cube. There are quite advanced ways you can use to get it to explode into several pieces, but we haven't got the month it will take to learn how to do that because it's very complex. So we're just going to have flames appear all around it, which looks quite effective. Now to do that, I need to edit the blueprint. I can do that in two ways. It's already down here. I've already selected it down here, so I could just edit that. It's also selected on the game, so you can see here, cube blueprint, and I can just edit it there. I'm going to exactly the same thing. I'm going to the blueprint for my cube. Just going to expand that. So this is what we did before. I got hello there, and this is the bit that is dealing with the event of a projectile hitting my box. So when a projectile hits my box, this fires a response. I don't need that there anymore, but I'm going to leave it there anyway. The reason being, if my cube stops responding, I can see how far the execution of the code gets. So if that doesn't appear, something's wrong between here and here. So something's not worked. So these are quite handy for debugging. Now what I want to do, I want to get some flames appearing. I want an explosion. So when my projectile hits the box, this deals with the response, the event, and I want to spawn, that's the word we're using, I want to spawn an emitter of the type explosion. It's early on a Sunday morning. Tea is very important. So I want to spawn an emitter. An emitter is the term we use for anything like fire, smoke, light, or any other special effects. It's an emitter. So I'm going to drag off of this again and release. And I'm just going to type in SPAWN, and you can see already what I've got is limited. Because this is context sensitive, it doesn't give me every single thing on the planet or everything that I can do. It's just the stuff which I can use in here. And then I'm going to go E and M for emitter. Oops, only one M. And I've got two options, location, which I've hit, or attached. I'm going to go for attached. And what that means, it will spawn the emitter attached to my static mesh, which is the cube. If I go to my viewport here, that's my static cube. So I want my flames, my explosion, to be attached to my cube. Go back to my event graph here, and I've picked spawn emitter attached. Now I'm going to select from here the emitter template, what one do I want, and I'm going to go for explosion. It's the second one down, which is one of the things that you get with starter content. So far, what that will do, it will try, let me just compile it, it will try and spawn an emitter attached to a component, but I haven't told it what it needs to be attached to. I'm just going to close that for a sec. I want it attached to my block. I want my explosion to spawn attached to my cube. So I'm just going back to my blueprint again. So I need to tell it what to attach to. Now, I think I said before that in my blueprint, we have a number of components in my blueprint. In fact, in this one, there's only one. It's just the static mesh. Just this. Go back to my events. So what I want to do, I want to create a reference to the component I want this to attach to, because I can actually get this attached to any element within a blueprint, but I want it just to attach to my cube. And I'm just going to drag that over there. So all I did was select my static mesh component here, which is my cube, and drag that on, and it creates a reference. And then I just plug that into attached component. So what that will do, and I'm going to hook that back up again, so hello should still appear. So what I've done is I've just put this between my string to print hello and my event handler, which is on component hit. I need to compile it, always save it. So this will spawn an explosion attached to the static mesh component, which is my cube. Simple, eh? Yeah, just nod and keep going. So when I play this now, what I should get, let's walk up for effect, is an explosion spawn. Oh yeah, baby. And look, I've still got hello appearing in the top left. Now, because I haven't destroyed my actor, because I haven't put any other conditions on it, that code's going to run every single time a projector hits it. It might even run when I run into it. Yeah. So look, I'm running into it and it hits. So it can't differentiate at the moment between the projectile and me. Yep. That's fine. And off we go. Press escape to finish. So that's all right. You know what I mean? That's all right. I can have a bunch of those. But to my thinking, that's a bit thin. I'd like to have 2 explosions. So I'm going to press escape. Alt tab to go back to my editor. Event graph. So I want to explore another explosion, but not at the same time. I want to do it slightly after the first. So I'm going to copy all of this, Control C, Control V to copy. Hook these 2 back up for now while I'm testing. And if they appear at the same time, not much good. So I want to put a little delay between that one and that one. So I don't know, 1/10 of a second. So the first explosion, then the second explosion. Perhaps I'll have the second explosion bigger. So we get a bang bang. Like that, bang bang. Yep, that's what I'm going for, a bang bang. So I want to put a delay between that explosion spawning and that explosion spawning. Now to do that, drag off of this, release, and this time just hit delay, type in delay. You've got to spell it right. I just did that to show what happens if you spell it wrong. And down here, I've got delay. Now delay is really handy. I need to hook delay up to that. And because I'm a bit anal about these things, I want everything beautifully flat like that. Now at the moment it's set to 2/10 of a second, so I'm just going to save that and minimize that again and have a look at what that looks like. So you've got one explosion, then the second one. I think I'd like a little bit closer than it. So I'm just going to change that to 0.1. Number lock off. So I want the explosions a little bit bigger. 0.1. And I want the second explosion to be bigger. So I can change the scale of my explosion. I'm going to make it 1.5 times. And you know, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees as well. So it looks slightly different. Yep. I can actually change its location. I can do some clever stuff using this location. Make it appear a little bit lower or a little bit higher or to the left or to the right, but I'm not going to do that because that's complicated. We haven't got time. So what I've done, I've got my first explosion, which we're quite happy with. I've got a delay of 1/10 of a second. Then I've got a second explosion, slightly bigger. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to run up to it before I shoot it. Quite good effect. Yay! That's alright. So, this is good. Quite happy with that. I can add noise to it at the same time. I'm going to get rid of my hello string now. I don't think I need that. A nice cup of tea. So what I want you to do, as before, I want you to go into the blueprint, add these two, spawn emitter attached, and click explosion, select explosion, and do that. Now if you've done that as you're going along, fine, just keep going. If not, do it now. And we'll be back shortly, kids. Save your flipping work. I'll actually smooth this time control. Right, so we have done all of that. We've got our explosions, we've got the physics done for our block, we've coloured our block, we've coloured our floor. It's all looking pretty good. If you haven't done that, what are you doing? Rewind, go back, catch up. There's no point watching this bit unless you've done the previous bit. So stop it, rewind and look at it again. If you're up to date, however, what we have at the moment is, there we go, an insane, which is fine, but I'd like some sound. So escape to finish my game. I'm going to go into the editor again. Now this is where we left off. We had our box handling the event when the projectile hits my box. I've got another node, sorry, these are all called nodes, which is spawn emitter attached, which is spawning an explosion attached to my cube. I've not done anything else with the rest of it. I've got a little pause of 1/10 of a second. Then I've got a second explosion visual effect, slightly bigger. So we get a kind of a bang bang sort of effect. But this is all done in silence. What I would like, I think, is an explosion to be added to this. So we're going to add some audio. Just going to reduce that a bit. Now this is where your blueprints start to get a bit messy. If you were coding this, it's relatively straightforward because you just get lines of code. When you're using nodes and you're producing something that isn't very straightforward, and trust me, this is actually still fairly straightforward, all these nodes and all of these connectors can get really messy. So try and keep it tidy. Otherwise, when you want to come in and edit what you're doing or just to understand what you've done before, it can get really messy. So I want to spawn some sound after my explosion. I want delay, and then I want the second explosion plus the sound of an explosion. So I need to give myself some room to work first of all. So I'm just moving that over. Unreal comes with some nice stuff in the starter content, as you've already seen. It includes an explosion. If I want to find these, just look at starter content. I've got my particles down here. That's where my explosion effect was. That's what it looks like. You can play around with these and edit all of these if you wish, but do it with a copy. Take a copy first before you start to play around with any of these. I amended one of these to create a blood splatter, but I did not lose my initial explosion because that would have been bad. What we've also got in starter content is audio, and there's a whole bunch of audio effects here, including explosion. Some are a bit more subtle. We've got the sound of sparks, pretty quiet, and lots of other stuff like that. And we've also got some background sort of music. No, that's not it. Don't want any of that. What we want is explosion. So I need to add my explosion sound to my blueprint. going to tab back to my blueprint. Now I've got the habit of just minimizing this, so I can just tab back to it. If you've lost your blueprint, just make sure you select your cube and go to edit blueprint over here, or go back to your root content folder and find it here. Either way, it takes you to the same thing. So my event, put it right here on my cube, spawning explosion attached to my cube, delay, and then repeat. Now what I want to add is a sound. So I'm dragging off of that again, typing spawn again, but this time S for sound. And we're going to do the same thing. Spawn sound attached, and there you go. Now this is actually contains an awful lot of the other stuff, but they've minimized it, so you need to open it. So if I wanted to, I could change its location, its rotation, and also its volume and its pitch. So that's its tone from high pitch to low pitch, and even put a delay on it. I can also set up attenuation, but I'm not going to explain attenuation to you now. So as before, I need to select the sound, and it takes me to the folder where all the audio are. And actually, if you add audio elsewhere in your game, as long as it's within the contents folder somewhere, it will list it. And I want Explosion 2. I've got to be honest, I can't tell any difference between Explosion 2 and Explosion 1. As I've done the same, spawn attached, I need to tell it what to attach to. So I'm bringing in a reference to that. Now that spawn my explosion noise. As before, I'm just going to duplicate that and connect it back up again. So what that should do is spawn my explosion, the sound of the explosion, delay for 1/10 of a second, spawn it. You know, let's put a bigger delay in there so you can sort of see this. Let's make it 1/2 a second. And then I have the second noise as well. Save it as ever. Right, let's go back to my game. Press play. Yeah. And you can hear that. Second explosion. Which is probably too long a delay, so it's bugging me, so I'm going to go back in and change it back to 0.2, I think. So I've still got 2/10 of a second delay. So, quite happy with that. Save that and save all. So what we have now got is our exploding cube. Which is very nice. If you've fallen off, by the way, at some point, I'm sure you've already figured this out, but if you do fall, you will fall forever until you press escape, and then just play again. If you're in the bigger screen, Alt P will play, and just escape to get back to where you were. So there we are, my friends. All you got to do now is drag on. Just use the scroll button on the mouse, as many of these as you like, to create effects. To duplicate these, you just hold down the Alt key. All I'm doing is creating more copies of the same one. Rotate them a little bit to make them look a bit more jumbled up. If you want, select 2 at once, just like you would anything. Select 1, hit the control button, hit 2. To duplicate again, hold down the Alt key. Ooh. Look at that, beautifully jumbled lot of boxes. What is nice is I can actually colour these differently once they're on the game. So if I wanted to, I could go back to my materials down here and decide I want some of these to be steel. I want that one to be a different wood. But if you want them to behave differently, if you want them to do different things, depending on, in reaction to the projectile hitting them, you need to create a second blueprint. So if you want one to do a different thing from the others, you need to create a second blueprint. That one blueprint controls all of these. Nah, I don't like the noise. I suppose just delays too. Delay it still quick. Let's try again. There we go. Yeah. And again, once it's on, I can change anything. So if I want to, I can go back to its physics and make that one a lot lighter. So this one's a lot lighter than the others. So if I hit response different. Clear much higher a jump once it's on. Brilliant. And there you go, my friend. Friends exploding boxes. Now the rest of your journey is you. But if you want to develop some skills in this, if you want to carry on working on Unreal, the best thing I advise you to do, the best bit of advice, is to design yourself a little game, or just a level, just a little level, and say, decide I want it to do this, and I want this, and I want that. And then teach yourself. Go online, there are a million tutorials to do. Okay? So that is part one. Well done. Remember to save your work. Save. Top save. Bye for now.